topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Experts, where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. I'm your host, Steve-O, and we have got a great show for you today. This expert has literally been with us for 2 years. It's one of our top viewing shows of all of our shows across the country. We're going to be talking about estate planning, and sitting in for the ailing attorney Julia Dean, we've got Kayla Sprague. Good morning, or good afternoon, Kayla.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
I hope I'm pronouncing your name. Is it Kayla or Kala?
It's Kala. You were really close. It's like the flower, the calla lily. So, yep.
Now, Kala, don't ask a guy about a flower.
That's okay. Yeah, I never
nothing about
expected
flowers.
No, that's totally fine. I never expect people to be able to say it. It gets Kala, Kaya, so I'll answer. But it's Kala, really.
Okay. So, first of all, tell us about your background.
Sure. So I've been practicing in estate planning and probate for about 8 years. I have been here with Julia and the Dean Law Firm for just about 10 weeks, I think. So I'm originally from the Midwest. Went to law school in Kansas at Washburn, a little school that I enjoyed thoroughly. I can never say enough good things about my law school. But then I've lived in Texas, and this is the only place I've ever practiced. So I've been here for, like I said, 8 years, and estate planning, probate, and everything that Julia does as well. So really excited to be here.
You know, Kala, the one thing I've learned about estate planning over the years, you've really got, more than any other area of law, you really have to have a heart for other people because of all the different areas you deal in. Yeah.
I think that's actually originally what kind of attracted me to estate planning, if I'm honest, is when I was young and I had this idea of what lawyers did, I wanted to be a tax lawyer. I liked numbers, but I realized very quickly there are no people in tax law. You're just on the phone with the IRS, it felt like. So, when you get to help people, and people work their whole lives to save money or to take care of their kids, and it's truly their life's work, and anything that I can do to help them preserve that or help their children in the long run just makes me kind of feel good at the end of the day. And maybe that makes me selfish, but I just like helping people, and it's just a fun area of the law to be in. Like I said, you get to hear about people's love for their dog, you hear about people's kids, you hear about people, maybe the kids they don't like so much every once in a while. So it's very interesting. It's always something new every day, and I really enjoy the work.
I got to tell you, one of the things that really surprised me was there are people out there like Prince. He passed away. He did nothing to protect himself or his family members. He didn't even have a will. And here's a guy who's got probably a huge management team, and something as simple as a will he never even put together, and look at all the trouble it caused.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, I think a lot of times I don't know if it's just anxiety about going to talk to a lawyer, or, we have people come in and they maybe don't have as much money as they think they should. And so they get a little weary of whether they even need a will or whether it's worth the bang for their buck, because, they don't feel like they're where they need to be financially. But truly, it's so much more of an expensive process if you're going through probate without a will. You also have at that point very little to no control over where it goes or how it goes there. You have to follow whatever the state says. And, your second cousin twice removed can end up with a lot of stuff and you may not even know them, but that's just what the state of Texas has said. So, when you've got a will, you really it makes it so much easier, not only for the people that you leave behind, but also it gives you a lot more flexibility.
Well, I think whoever started the words estate planning, people go estate, and first thing they think of, oh, I've got to be a multimillionaire because to have an estate. But that's not what estate planning is.
No. And honestly, this is what we see most of the time is it's the clients that are, not as well off as they probably want to be. They are the ones that don't write the will. And then it costs them, like I said, more money in the long run. I mean, right now, without a will, you're easily talking $10,000 to $15,000 in the probate court. Whereas if a will is significantly cheaper than that, and a trust can avoid probate altogether and is still less expensive than going through the court process without a will. Like when, you're there in the court and they will tell you, this is what the law says, and this kid gets a third. And some of those kids are young and you don't want to leave them any real kind of money, or even more than $15, because what does a 2-year-old know about spending any money? And
right.
Leaving your beneficiaries or your heirs in sort of a vulnerable position. And if you just get in and swallow the, the anxiety issue and just go in there and talk to a lawyer, I think you're really going to find out that we're not as scary. We're always usually a lot more helpful than it sounds. And I know there's a lot of anxiety. I mean, me personally, I don't like to go to the doctor for the same exact reason. So I completely understand it. So.
Well, we talk about probate, and if you do not have a plan, probate can get really expensive. But believe it or not, there's a lot of people who have no idea what probate is. Tell people what probate is.
Probate's actually the process of retitling assets from the decedent or the dead person's name into that of the heirs. So mom dies and the will leaves everything to the kids. That's awesome. That's easy to do. So what a probate process looks like is getting an executor appointed, so someone to be in control of the will, and then to distribute it like it says. So in our hypothetical situation where there are 2 kids and they're getting 50-50, that's the responsibility of the executor. Here in Texas, the probate process is pretty simple. You're going to court, you're meeting with a judge, you're going there with an attorney who's going to ask you questions that you definitely know the answer to. Things like, how did you know the person who's passed away and stuff like that. So it's a very simple, kind of not scary process at all. But I think there's just a lot of misconceptions. But really the important part is getting all of the assets that were titled in somebody's name that is now passed away into the name of the people where it needs to go.
What are some of the ways you can avoid probate?
Sure. So the best way is a revocable living trust. Now, if you write a will tomorrow, you still end up in the probate process. Now, the probate process with a will, like we said, is much simpler than without a will, but you can also write a trust, which completely avoids probate. You can also take some steps in your own, on your own will, where you don't even have to talk to an attorney. You can own things, joint ownership, so that they pass outside of the probate court. You can put beneficiary designations on things. So a lot of times we think about 401ks. They have a form that say, who do you want it to go to on the date of your death? Well, as long as you put somebody in there that's not your own estate, you can pass that outside of probate. Also, like bank accounts and stuff can actually be made payable on death to a beneficiary and can avoid that probate You just have to be very careful if you're trying to avoid probate without an attorney, because if you forget just one asset, you're in the probate court for possibly a small asset, and you want to avoid spending more than you're going to recoup trying to get that asset back.
What happens if a person passes away? And we're not trying to scare anybody, but it's so important. What happens if a person passes away and they don't have a will?
So luckily, things still can get done. It's just a much lengthier, more expensive process. So the first step is still ending up in the probate court and getting someone appointed as your administrator. The unfortunate part when there's no will is the court has to appoint what we call an attorney ad litem to represent the unknown heirs. So basically that attorney's job is to find anybody that was related to the decedent who might have a stake in the estate. That's another attorney's fees on top of the attorney that you're paying to go to court with you. And those are completely avoidable if you write a will at least, or do planning to avoid the probate situation completely. You have no flexibility. Like I said, there are state statutes that we just cannot circumvent at that point, where your estate will go to the people that the law has said so. You have no more, you can't leave it all to the neighbor any longer. You have to leave it to who they've said you have to leave it to. And also, like I said, there's no way to control how people are getting things. If you have a beneficiary or you have an heir, a child who has some special needs or some bad spending habits that maybe you want to protect them from themselves. If you're in a court without a will, there's none of that anymore. It's too late. So those kids are going to be sort of on their own. And for some people, that's okay. Some people's kids can handle it. Other people's unfortunately cannot. And it always depends on how old the child is when their parent passes away, of whether they're capable of handling it or not.
One of the things we've been doing Julia's show for several years now, and one of the most amazing things that I've found with your firm is you will do whatever it takes to save people money in the long run, including probate. You do so many things to protect them now from maybe later on having to go through probate.
That is always our goal. When you come in and you tell us, we talk to you about your situation, but one of the big things in our mind is avoiding probate, because the scariest thing about the probate process, with or without a will, even with a will, if bank or other financial institutions catch wind that someone has passed away, a lot of times they will freeze those accounts, which makes perfect sense from their perspective. They don't want things coming in and out of an account when nobody is alive to be the custodian of that account. Makes perfect sense. But what happens in practice is that then, mom needs to be buried, but we don't have access to her checking account. So kids have to cover it if they have the money to do it. If they don't have the money, a lot of the times things are at a stalemate until we can get inside the probate court, which can take, right now, they're scheduling here in Fort Bend County and Harris County well into October already. So you're waiting at least 60 days just to get in front of a judge. And then things just move at the mercy of the court a lot of the times. And we like to avoid that, because we know when someone has passed away, there are so many emotions that you need to go through. There's a grieving process that you need to go to that honestly, for most people, cannot start until you've taken care of some of the probate issues. And so if we can avoid the probate issues, that emotional healing starts sooner. And that's what we want for people. We just want happy, healthy clients who can have the ability to take care of it and not have to go through hoops that are completely unnecessary that could have been avoided. So,
you know what? And I can't believe my mind works this way, but whenever I see maybe somebody in their late 30s, early 40s, or even 50s pass away, knowing it was probably sudden.
Right.
And people just wait till the last minute when it comes to planning their estate. No one expects to die tomorrow,
I know, and I promise you're going to die, unfortunately. Yeah. So, it's better to take care of it. I think a lot of it, I really believe that a lot of it comes from either anxiety or, like you said, people think they don't have enough money, or they think what they do have doesn't need to be protected. But that's just not true. I mean, what you have, even if you've only saved $1,000 on the date of your death, you should surely want that $1,000 to go where you want it to go, whether it's 1,000 or 1,000,000,000. You want to take care of your kids with what you do have. And so, or your people in general, whether they be friends or family members or whatever, we want to be able to take care of people. And it doesn't matter how much money it is, it's just doing, like I said, I think people just have some anxiety about talking to attorneys. And I promise we're not as scary as they are on TV.
I'm like in awe of you, because you've got so many things in your head that people would never even think about. I mean, the questions that you ask people, I mean, you've got a whole list in your head of things you have to do when it comes to estate planning.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the big things is we do talk about your finances 100%, because right now the tax laws are changing. So even, big estates, we can do right now, as long as you die with less than around $13 million, you die what they call estate tax free. That's great, because the estate tax currently is at 40%. That number is set to go down. And with the election and everything coming up, we don't know what that number will be. So, if it goes down to, say, $2 million, that affects a lot more people than at $13 million. So that's one of the finances is a portion of it. I'm not going to beat around the bush. We will need to know those kinds of things. But then it's the dynamics of your children. It's relationships inside of the family unit. How do people get along? Is there a problem child? Do children already fight? Is it going to be is your will going to be more prone to be argued against, or someone's going to make a claim that they should have gotten more? Those are the kinds of things that we do ask, and that initial meeting almost feels like a get to know you moment, where you talk about the law too, but that's really what it is. We just need to know you. We want to know what your concerns are. What are your priorities? Who do you think which one of your kids do you think needs a little more help? So all those things in that first initial meeting with your attorney. And I really, really suggest that you ask your attorney questions too. It's not just about them asking to get to know you. You should get to know them, and you should feel free to ask them any question that you want an answer to, because your attorney is a very personal choice. Much like a doctor, you really need to trust them. They're going to handle everything you've worked your whole life for. So you should really trust them. And I like to treat my clients as if they were my mother or my sister or my grandma. And I tell clients all the time, this is what I tell my grandma to do. And it's true. I'm not giving you any advice that I wouldn't give to my own family or my own loved ones. So, then I know that that's true of Julia and our other attorney, Jonathan here. He's been practicing a couple of years longer than I have. And we all feel the same way. And I think that's what you need to look for in an attorney. And I'm not saying we're the only attorneys out there that feel that way, but ask your attorney, get to the bottom, figure out, do they care? Or am I just a number to them? Am I just a paycheck?
Right.
And that's so important. I hate to sound like so negative, but it happens every day. So get to know your lawyer like they're getting to know you.
Tell people how important it is to have a power of attorney.
Sure. So we've been talking so much about wills and trusts, and wills don't actually take over until you've passed away. So during your life, you may not have anybody to do things for you. For example, this is the example I always use. Let's say you're just out of the country and you have a power of attorney. You can get your power of attorney to do things for you while you're out of the country on business or whatever. Or say you're in the hospital and you need to do something with your bank account. If you have named a power of attorney, they can take that one little state form into the bank and say, hey, Calla is, otherwise not available. I'm here to do this. And you can do a lot of things. With that being said, I always tell people, pick someone you trust. because they almost step into your shoes financially. They can sell your house, and in theory, of course, you could sue them to get it back, but after it's sold, that's a much harder thing to sue for. So they can, we hear so much about elder law or elder abuse and things like that going on. So
Yes.
You really need to pick somebody you trust. You really need to talk to your attorney about what powers you want them to have. The default a lot of times is all the powers allowed by law, but sometimes it makes sense for somebody not to be able to deal with, for example, your stocks and bonds, but need to be able to deal with your bank account. So you really need to discuss those options, because it's not like a lot of people think an all or nothing kind of situation. You can really give your power of attorney a lot of thought and what specific powers you'd want to give them, instead of, just a blanket statement of do whatever you think is best. Powers of attorney can also make gifts for you. A lot of people make gifts to their grandchildren, and if they're not around or they're otherwise incapacitated, if they want someone to be able to make that gift, that's an important thing. And I just bring up those powers specifically because those are things people don't think about without an attorney present. So ask your attorney, why would I need to give them that power? Why would I need to give them that one? What's a situation where you've seen where someone's abused that power? And it's hard to know, I know, to ask what questions you should know to ask. And I think we could probably do a whole half hour on what questions do you need to ask your attorney, and maybe we'll do that next month. But these are, the more questions the better, and there's no such thing as a dumb question, because you've probably never done this before and you have no idea. And if your attorney tells you it's a dumb question, shame on them, they're not the attorney for you. So I really like to be really prove that point, or talk to that point a lot, because I want you to be comfortable with whoever you've chosen as your attorney. So,
well, Cal, one of the things you've learned today is this show goes by so fast.
I know.
And you're nervous in the beginning, and also you get into it, it's like it's over. But you did such a wonderful job today. Thank you so much. Let's give a phone number for the firm.
Sure. It is. That's a good question. Is it on the screen?
It should be rolling.
Yeah, and I'll just give it to you. It's 281-277-3326, but it's also at the bottom of the screen, I do see. So.
Exactly.
And when in doubt, just give us a call. I mean, really, we'll try to do our best to help and answer anything we can. And then if we think it's something we got to start charging you for, we'll tell you. We'll just be honest and upfront with you. So just give us a shout, and we'll look forward to hearing from all you.
I love the Dean Law Firm. Hala, thank you so much. And you'll be back with us again next month on the Ask the Expert Show. Thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Good. And we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll have more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert Show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.